Good evening and welcome to the news at 6 on Mitv. I am Jumoke Michaels. President Muhammadu Buhari has eulogized the last leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, saying history will be kind to him for prioritizing the interest of the Russians over his political ambition. Paying tribute to the former Soviet leader, President Buhari described Gorbachev as a courageous reformer who will be remembered for years to come because of his immeasurable contributions to the world peace and openness in his own once rigidly closed society. In a statement signed by the president's spokesman, Garba Shehu, on Wednesday, he said although Gorbachev's political career was consumed by those reforms, history and posterity will be kind to him for placing the interest of the Soviet people above his own ambition. The 91-year-old Gorbachev served from 1985 to 1991, helping to transition the U.S.-Soviet relations out of the Cold War. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo's son on Wednesday morning jetted to the United States of America to seek global partnerships and support for Nigeria's recently launched energy transition plan. Osinbajo will meet his American counterpart, Kamala Harris, World Bank Group, and other partners as part of the schedule in the trip, which came about 1 month after Osinbajo's successful surgery. Osinbajo is leading Nigeria's Energy Transition Implementation Working Group on the U.S. mission, with meetings starting from September 1 to promote the plan and secure global support from the U.S. government, the private sector, and other development partners. Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan, launched last week, is said to need at least $10 billion per annum above business as usual spending for effective implementation. At the launch, the World Bank and a renewable energy organization, Sun Africa, pledged a sum of $1.5 billion each, totaling an initial $3 billion investment to support the implementation of Nigeria's energy transition plan. Today's scheduled meeting of the 21 former presidential aspirants of the All Progressives Congress APC in Abuja could not hold, despite series of pre-event publicity. The roundtable, earlier slated for 2 p.m., was for the aspirants to come up with strategies to support the APC standard-bearer, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, to win the February 23 presidential election. Although no official reason was given for the postponement of the meeting, it was gathered that most of the aspirants who were invited to the parley were non-committal. Convener of the meeting and APC's youngest presidential aspirant at its June presidential convention, Dr. Nicholas Felix, had earlier said the aspirants had indicated their readiness to attend the meeting. However, in a message sent to one of the aspirants and seen by Vanguard, Felix implied that the meeting had been postponed indefinitely. Still on politics, the national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Iyorchia Ayu, has affirmed that he will not succumb to calls from some quarters for him to resign his position. Ayu stressed that such calls are coming from political amateurs who lack basic understanding of PDP principles. The former senator asserted that he was elected by Nigerians and members of the opposition party to that exalted position based on the party's guidelines. According to reports, after losing the PDP presidential primary to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike outlined conditions for remaining within the party. One of the reported conditions is that Ayu, who hails from Benue State, also in northern Nigeria, must resign, but in his response during an interview, Ayu stressed that he will not resign. And away from politics, the National Association of Nigerian Students has urged state-owned universities to resume academic activities, describing the total and indefinite strike declared by the Academic Staff Union of Universities as unpatriotic and wicked. NAN's president, Sunday Asefo, stated this in a statement on Wednesday. Asefon alleged that the decision to extend the industrial action after 6 months was easy for ASU because they keep employment at various private universities across the country. The Students' Union called on state government to forthwith liaise with vice chancellors of state institutions to announce the resumption of academic activities and grant the vice chancellors authority to enforce the resumption, as state universities should never have joined the strike in the first place. The NANS president urged ASU leadership in state institutions to tow the path of honor and call off the strike. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, University of Lagos Chapter, Dele Ashiru, says the federal government declared war on ASU and lecturers in public universities, and they are only responding to the unacceptable treatment with an indefinite strike. Ashiru spoke on Wednesday morning when he featured on a television program. The federal government had on Tuesday summoned a meeting with vice chancellors and pro-chancellors for September 6, 2022 at the National Universities Commission in Abuja over ASU's over 6-month strike, which started on February 14, 2022. But the chairman of the union in Unilag said the proposed meeting is part of government's diversionary tactics and another jamboree to waste government's money. On claims that the government has met 80% of the demands of ASU, Ashiru said not one item has been met, even the one that requires no money, such as the release of a government-wide paper on visitation panel. Ondo Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu has picked holes in the pipeline protection contract awarded to private organizations linked to former MEND leader, Government Ekpeme Pupolo, aka Tompolo. Akeredolu stated that the engagement of private organizations to handle serious security challenges reinforced the belief that the whole defense architecture in the country needs an urgent overhaul. The Ondo governor, in a statement he personally signed, wondered why the federal government, through the Office of the National Security Advisor, has been consistent in its refusal to accede to the request by some states in the Federation to strengthen the complementary initiatives adopted to protect lives and property. Akeredolu said it was safe to conclude that the federal government has impliedly permitted non-state actors to bear heavy assault weapons while denying same privilege to the states and the federating units. To enhance the impact of the public sector on the overall productivity and economic growth of the Nigerian economy, a non-governmental organization has said a ranking system must be introduced to measure and assess the performance of the government by its citizens. The Index Project Manager of the AIG Imokwede Foundation, Kachi Nwachukwu, made this known at a sensitization workshop organized by the AIG Imokwede Foundation in partnership with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group in Abuja. She noted that the Public Performance Index introduced by the organization will serve as a ranking system to provide data on the performance of specific sectors of the government to inform policy, stimulate research, and encourage informed debate.
So we are doing this index in partnership with Nigerian Economic Summit Group. And what we want to do is to come up with an objective and a scientific way to assess the performance of government, to produce a scorecard with which governments can be assessed. For us to do this, we want to start with a pilot set with 10 ministries, and we carefully chose 10 of these ministries that contribute mostly to our human development indices. We're talking about healthcare, education, our food security, our infrastructural development, security, and defense. And so we've brought them together to, sensitize them on what this index is all about. And this index will certainly improve accountability between the public institutions and the Nigerian citizens who
Here in Lagos, the state government says it has directed law enforcement agencies and security personnel to ensure the total compliance of Okada riders and further ban on their operations in 4 local government and 6 local council development areas of the state, with effect from 1st of September 2022. Speaking at a press briefing organized by the Inter-Ministerial Committee on Okada Ban at Press Center, Alausa Ikeja, the Commissioner for Transportation, Frederick Oladendi, re-emphasized the need for total compliance by riders for the security and safety of lives of residents. He said the Lagos state government had put in place various interventions to ease the inconveniences that the development might bring on the people, adding that there was need to obey the Lagos state traffic law, as both the rider and passenger would be penalized. Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Bengal Motosho, restated the need for riders to comply with the directives on the ban of Okada in the 4 local government and 6 local councils, as there will be no going back on total enforcement by the state.
The decisions and position of government on Okada is very clear, and we are not compromising on the decision, which is to further consolidate on the achievements made so far, with particular reference to decrease in accident and crime rate, as well as the return of sanity to our community within the state. Permit me to also remind you that the state government has directed the Nigerian police force and the Lagos Command with all relevant stakeholders. This includes the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and other security and law enforcement formations within the state to be complemented by the anti-Okada squad. These people will be deployed to these new locations in a bid to stimulate seamless implementation and enforcement of the Phase 2 ban of Okada operation in the state. For the general public to comply, both the riders and passengers are both liable to 3 years imprisonment if caught, and that bike will be confiscated. We will crush that bike, and the whole public will see the crushing process.
The media and civil society groups have a critical role to play in ensuring social inclusion ahead of the 2023 general elections by forming a united and formidable front for the voiceless in the society. Similarly, the media needs to play a critical role in agenda setting for good political environment and governance by providing a platform to raise issues on anti-corruption drive of politicians and political parties. These, among others, came to the front burner at the capacity building workshop for civil society organizations and media executives with the theme, Corruption, Election, and the Troubled Democracy, the Role of Media and the CSOs, by the Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership, CACOL, in Lagos. The chairman of CACOL, Debo Adeniro, said social inclusion and how to fight corruption have become imperative in the polity ahead of the 2023 elections, pointing out that several youth and women were excluded from the political process. The executive director of Journalists for Democratic Rights, Joda Wale Adeoye, tasked the media not to relent in setting political agenda, as communication is key in governance.
The media space is being dominated by half-brown political class. The media space is being manipulated by the rich, by ethnic majority, by religious majority, and the physically able, to the disadvantage of those that are vulnerable. The media should realize that there are political minorities whose views needed to be heard to enrich the political discourse. In recent events, the media has focused strongly on its own understanding of big issues, mainly reflecting the opinion of influential politicians.
We have to, in order for us to have moral, what do you call it now? Courage to raise questions. We have to make deliberate effort to ram it down their throats that, look, there should be an agenda for anti-corruption exercises if eventually you win election, and you have to show it to us. The same thing with social inclusion. Everybody must be carried along.
This kind of initiative undertaken by CACOL is essential and, very valuable to build citizens' consciousness, especially the media and civil society. You would agree that the media and civil society are the cornerstones of democracy, and their importance in every democracy and society cannot be overemphasized or underestimated.
There seemed to be succor on the way for millions of local farmers in Africa, and particularly in Nigeria, as an humanitarian organization is partnering some financial institutions to provide them grants worth $5 billion. Local farmers in Nigeria, particularly those in Osun State, stand the chance to be the first set of beneficiaries of the grant, as the country is favored for the first tranche. The communication officer of one of the financial institutions, Joseph Idoni, made this disclosure in Osogbo, Osun State, at a sensitization program held to enlighten prospective beneficiaries on conditions and how to get the grants. Idoni said the grant is targeted at addressing global food scarcity, particularly in Africa. You're still watching the news at 6 on MITV. Up next are stories from the foreign scene. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The Taliban have celebrated the first anniversary of the withdrawal of US-led forces from Afghanistan with a military parade showcasing equipment left behind by foreign troops and calls for their government to be accepted as legitimate internationally. Fireworks lit up the sky over Kabul on Tuesday night on the anniversary of the withdrawal, and Wednesday was also a public holiday with small celebrations across Kabul, including parades by Taliban forces. The U.S. withdrawal completed a minute before midnight on August 30, 2021, which came as the Taliban swept to power after a 20-year war against U.S.-led forces who invaded Afghanistan following the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States. U.S. Department of Justice officials have said that former President Donald Trump may have concealed documents during an FBI search of his property in June. In a court filing, this department said efforts were likely taken to obstruct the government's investigation. The alleged agents were explicitly prohibited from searching a storage room at Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago mansion. Officials said other records were likely concealed and removed from a storage room.
Now it's sickening to see the new attacks on the FBI, threatening the life of law enforcement agents and their families for simply carrying out the law and doing their job. Look, I want to say this as clear as I can. There's no place in this country, no place, for endangering the lives of law enforcement. No place. None, never, period. I'm opposed to defunding the police. I'm also opposed to defunding the FBI.
The United Nations has appealed for $160 million to help Pakistan following epochal rains and flooding that have killed more than 1,100 people, affected 33 million others, and destroyed homes, businesses, infrastructure, and crops. Torrential rain has triggered flash floods that have crashed down from northern mountains, wrecking buildings and bridges and washing away roads and crops. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said in a video message to launch the appeal in Islamabad and Geneva that Pakistan is awash in suffering. Colossal volumes of water are pouring into the Indus River, which flows down the middle of Pakistan from its northern peaks to southern plains, bringing flooding along its length.
Excellencies, dear friends, Pakistan is awash in suffering. The Pakistani people are facing a monsoon on steroids, the relentless impact of epochal levels of rain and flooding. The climate catastrophe has killed more than 1,000 people, with many more injured. Millions are homeless, schools and health facilities have been destroyed, livelihoods are shattered, critical infrastructure wiped out, and people's hopes and dreams have washed away. Every province of the country has been affected. In my prior position as High Commissioner for Refugees, I witnessed the enormous giving spirit of the Pakistani people, welcoming and protecting millions of Afghan refugees.
We'll take a break now to bring you sports stories. Welcome back. Head coach of the Super Falcons, Randy Waldron, has selected 4 players from Nigeria's under-20 girls that reached the quarterfinals at the just concluded FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup in Costa Rica. The Super Falcons of Nigeria have arrived in Kansas City, Kansas, United States for their double-header friendly with the United States women's national team. The Super Falcons will play the first of their 2-match tour at the Children's Mercy Park in Kansas City on Saturday, September 3rd, and both teams will clash again at the Audi Field in Washington, D.C., 3 days after. Nigeria and the U.S. women's team have qualified for the FIFA Women's World Cup, which will be hosted by Australia and New Zealand between July and August 2023. Chelsea have completed the signing of French centre-back Wesley Fofana from Leicester City on a 7-year deal for £70 million plus add-ons. Fofana joined Leicester from French side Saint-Etienne in 2020 and has since made 37 Premier League appearances. He was restricted to just 7 league games during the 2021-2022 campaign after breaking his leg in a pre-season friendly against Villarreal. Even with any potential add-on payments, the deal for the 21-year-old does not exceed the £80 million that Manchester United paid Leicester for Harry Maguire in 2019, still a world record for a defender. And talking tennis, Emma Raducanu became only the 3rd defending champion to exit the US Open in the first round. 19-year-old Raducanu slumped to a 6-3, 6-3 defeat to veteran French player Alizé Cornet, who is competing in a record 63rd consecutive Grand Slam. Raducanu has struggled in the spotlight of being a Grand Slam winner, failing to get beyond the second round of any of the previous 3 majors in 2022. Similarly, 4-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka's hopes of a 3rd US Open title were dashed in the first round as the Japanese star slumped to a straight-set loss against Danielle Collins. Osaka, a winner at Flushing Meadows in 2018 and 2020, was beaten 7-6, 7-5, 6-3 by 19th-seeded American Collins in a battle of 2 big hitters. And that's it on the news at 6 on MITV. Join us again at 9:30 for the primetime news. I am Jumoke Michael. See you then.